it's Lindsay, welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be doing my September book haul part 1. Now those of you that watched my August book haul will know that I said in that video that I'd bought quite a few books at the beginning of September already and that my September book haul was going to be huge, and it is huge, so hence why it's in 2 parts. So I'm going to spend this half of the video going through particular books. I'll tell you what categories they're in as we get through, and then look out for part 2 of the book haul when it comes out, I think on Friday. I think this is going to go up on Monday. The first 6 books that I've got to show you are the shortlist for the Man Booker Prize. On Wednesday the 13th of September the shortlist was announced, and I was really anticipating it because you guys know that I have promised to read it like I did the Bailey's Prize this year, and review all of the books and talk to you guys about my thoughts on them. So that's exactly what I wanted to do. I was kind of thinking, oh, will I own any of the ones that are on the shortlist? It turned out that I didn't own any of them, so I had to buy all 6. So I've got 6 on my lap here. So firstly I've got Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I'm not going to talk about what these are about because I talked about them in my long list video, so you can go and watch that. I'll link that for you, and also I'm going to be doing individual reviews on all of these as well. I was quite surprised when this came how short it was. I'd seen a few people hold it up, more the American version of it, and for some reason I just thought it was going to be longer, but then when I look at all of his other books, they're quite short books. So I've already read this, so there will be a review going up on my channel shortly. Next on the shortlist I've got Autumn by Ali Smith. This is a really beautiful cover. And I'd seen the cover quite a lot obviously before, but when I got it in my hands I appreciated it even more. I mean, the colours are spectacular. Again, I've already read this, so there will be a review going up on my channel soon. Next up I have History of Wolves by Emily Fridland. I'm currently reading this one. I'm only about 20 pages into it at the moment, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And again, this is quite short and the font is quite big, so I don't think it's going to take me too long to get through these. This one, sorry. So that's that. Then we've got Elmet by Fiona Mosley, and this has got beautiful French flaps on it, which I really enjoy. Yeah, not quite sure what to make of this one. Yeah, but we'll see. I've got Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. I said in my long list video that I've heard a few people talk about this already. And again, even though this is a lot longer, some of the pages are a little bit shorter in this one. So yeah, again, even though it's longer, I don't think it's going to take me too long to get through that. I'm quite looking forward to reading about Abraham Lincoln and his son. So yeah, there's that. And then lastly, I pulled this out of the box from the order that came, and I could not believe how massive this is. It's 4321 by Paul Auster. I mean, look at it. It's the size of my head, and look how big it is. I mean, the font isn't particularly big either. I mean, it is big, but yeah, so I just don't know. I'm kind of leaving this one until last. I think because if I was to have picked it up first, I think I would have got quite disheartened about not kind of making progress on the shortlist. So yeah, it's definitely not one I'm going to be carrying around with me. Next up I've got some books that I was sent. This first one I was sent by the author. This is the first, or actually it's the second time that an author has emailed me asking me if I would like to have a copy of their books and review them. The first time I wasn't really interested, but this one really piqued my interest. I got really excited about the fact that I was going to get a copy of it, and it is Dennis and Greer by Molly Gould. This is advanced reader copy. And does it say when it's going to come out? I think it's out at the beginning of October. So if I find the date, I'll put it down here for you. But this is a true story that encapsulates the horrors of war and the innocence of young love. Buried in a trunk for 50 years, this long forgotten tale told through letters and journals from the war-torn Vietnam era, has been resurrected. College students Dennis and Greer met and felt a spark just before moving to different states. Their witty correspondence through letters conjured a desire to meet again, but Dennis tried to keep his distance. Duty is more important than love. As the two embarked on their journey into adulthood and navigated their relationship against the backdrop of war, they were writing a love story that will span the test of time. So yeah, when the author got in touch with me and I kind of looked it up on Goodreads, I was really intrigued by the premise. So this is obviously a non-fiction book, and it's just a series of letters. So I'm quite interested to see how this goes. You can see I've got my bookmark in it at the moment. I haven't actually started it yet, but it is the next non-fiction book that I want to read. So we'll see how that goes. Then I was sent a couple of books that I won in a Twitter competition. So the author Vic James, who wrote the book Gilded Cage, I think is that the first one? Yeah, I think it's. I think the second in that series is coming out soon. She was running a Twitter competition to win these two books here, and I won them. So we've got Starborn and Heartland, and they're both by Lucy Hounsome, and they're a fantasy series, I believe. They don't have particularly great ratings on Goodreads, especially the first one, but when Vic James was talking about them to me, she said, they get a lot better. It gets a lot better in the second book, so please pick up the first and sort of persevere with it. So yeah, I quite like fantasy. I think this is kind of YA fantasy. So have a read of what the first one says on the back. On the day Kindra comes of age, she accidentally destroys her village's most sacred tradition. A devastating storm follows and the superstitious community blames her for it. Kindra fears for her life until two strangers intervene. They wield powers fueled by the sun and moon, powers concealed for an age and with good reason. Together they flee to the hidden citadel of Naris. Here Kindra has disturbing visions of the past, which draw her to the city's fanatics and rebels. She will also be brutally assessed to see if she too possesses magic. But could the dark talent she hides create as well as destroy? And can she control it to right an ancient wrong? If she survives the test, everything will change. So I mean, that sounds quite good. Lost powers will shake the world. I think the third one is called Firestorm, must be coming out soon because there's a picture of it on the back of the two books. So I look forward to getting to those. She also sent with the package a few postcards from her own series of books. So there's 4 here and they're all the same. The first one's called Gilded Cage and the second one's called Tarnished City. So they're just kind of ones like that. Not all are free, not all are equal, not all will be saved. I'm quite interested in picking up that series as well, just because I've heard quite good things about it. And then she also sent with it as well a couple of sort of pins for this podcast called Breaking the Glass Slipper, and I think it's sort of a feminist / book podcast. So she sent this one, which is quite cool, and then this little pin with a glass slipper on it. So I thought they were really cool. I have subscribed to the podcast. I have to admit, I listened to the first sort of 5 or 10 minutes of it and it felt really scripted, and I tend to like podcasts that are a bit more free-flowing, and they're obviously planned and things, but this one kind of felt like they were literally reading from a script. If you've listened to this podcast and you think I should give it more of a try, please let me know, because I'm really interested in it because of these. Then the next set of books that I'm going to show you are all books that I bought with some leftover holiday money. Again, I talked about the fact that I had this leftover holiday money in my August book haul, and basically I just looked at my Amazon wish list and looked at things that I hadn't been able to find in bookshops and was really excited about, and kind of went from there. So the first one of those, this is a bit different. I bought this one for my husband basically, but this is The Exiled Queen by Cindy Williams China. This is the second book to the Seven Realms series, and I hauled, I think it's the Warrior Heir I can't see it at the moment, I think my books are blocking it, but I think it's called The Warrior Heir. And my husband read that earlier on in the year, really liked it, and you can see like he's got his bookmark in it at the moment. He's reading this, so I mean I will get around to that series soon, but I more bought it for him than anything. Then I've got here Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and this is by Benjamin O'Leary Science, and this is a YA contemporary book, and I believe it's about two boys and their relationship, and it's supposed to be really, really good. I have heard nothing but good things about it. It's going to be quite an easy read, it's quite short, and I've heard that the writing is really good in here, so I couldn't resist picking that one up. I've got here Poison Study, and this is by Maria V. Snyder. I've heard Reagan from Peruse Project talk about this book most recently. This is the start of a fantasy series, and I'll read you what it says on the back. How much is your life worth? In the territory of Ixia, control is maintained through the code of behaviour forbidding the practice of magic, but danger lurks in mysterious places. Imprisoned for murder, Yelena Zaltana's punishment is death, unless she accepts the position of the commander of Ixia's food taster, and risks assassination from poison daily. In a world where magic equals death and freedom is for the lucky few, the battle for Yelena's life has just begun. This is book one, and then I believe there are two other books in the series, so on the back it says the second one is Magic Study and the third one is Fire Study. Reagan's read these very recently and she has really enjoyed them, so I picked this up for me but also for my husband as well. You know, he loves fantasy, so I'm hoping we'll both like this. I picked up this particular book because of Russell over at Ink and Paper blog. I'll put a link to his channel for you. I absolutely adore his channel, love watching his videos. He's got so much to say about books and so many great recommendations, and he put a video up recently talking about Roxane Gay and all about her books and the ones that he's read and the ones that he has yet to read. So I really wanted to buy one of her books, and I thought I would go with An Untamed State, and this is, I believe, the only fiction book that she's brought out, so I thought I would read her fiction book before I have a little look at her non-fiction ones. This is supposed to be very disturbing and quite dark. So it says on the back, Muriel Duval Jameson is living a fairy tale. The strong-willed youngest daughter of one of Haiti's richest sons, she has an adoring husband, a precocious infant son, by all appearances a perfect life. The fairy tale ends one day when Muriel is kidnapped in broad daylight by a gang of heavily armed men in front of her father's Port-au-Prince estate. Held captive by a man who calls himself the Commander, Muriel waits for her father to pay her ransom. As it becomes clear her father intends to resist the kidnappers, Muriel must endure the torments of a man who resents everything she represents. An Untamed State is a novel of privilege in the face of crushing poverty and of the lawless anger that corrupts government's produce. It is the story of a willful woman attempting to find her way back to the person she once was, and of how redemption is found in the most unexpected of places. I mean, that sounds absolutely fantastic, and Russell said it was brilliant, so yeah, another one to be excited about. This next one that I have here is a non-fiction book, and it is called Brain on Fire by Susana Callahan, and this is, I believe, sorry I have a pile on my lap and I nearly knocked it over. This, I believe, is about an experience with mental health that Susana Callahan had, and just about trying to figure out what was wrong with her, and so she's documenting her time when this happened to her and sort of investigating, you know, what it was that was wrong and why it happened and things like that. So I have heard a lot of people say brilliant things about this. So it sounds like the kind of non-fiction book that I would like. I really enjoyed Paul Kalanithe's When Breath Becomes Air, and that sort of got me intrigued about sort of medical non-fiction. So we'll see whether I like that. I have got here I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. This is his other fiction book. I read The Book Thief 10 years ago now, something like that. And I have been talking about rereading that, but I don't think I'll get around to that by the end of the year. But this is his other book, which I've been meaning to pick up for ages because I really enjoyed his writing in The Book Thief. And this is about, I believe, some sort of a mystery story. So it says on the back, Ed Kennedy is an underage cab driver without much of a future. He's pathetic at playing cards, hopelessly in love with his best friend Audrey, and utterly devoted to his coffee-drinking dog, the doorman. His life is one of peaceful routine and incompetence until he inadvertently stops a bank robbery. That's when the first ace arrives in the mail. That's when Ed becomes the messenger. Chosen to care, he makes his way through town, helping and hurting where necessary, until only one question remains. Who's behind Ed's mission? That sounds very different to The Book Thief. Yeah, so I'm going to be interested to see what this is like and whether I enjoy it as much as I did The Book Thief. So I bought quite a few other non-fiction books, one of which was The New Jim Crow, and this is by Michelle Alexander. I've had this on my wish list for quite a while, and this, I believe, is an exploration of the modern era, so sort of post Barack Obama, or sort of when Barack Obama became president up until now, looking at black people in America and whether, you know, colour blindness is actually a thing, or whether, you know, we're still treating black people, or black people are still treated in a way that is, you know, unequal to everybody else. So I think this is going to be a really important read. It's quite a big book. I couldn't get over how tall it was. But yeah, I've been interested in this for quite a while. Also got here Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. Again, this is one that I have been wanting for ages, and I've heard so many people talk about it. This is, I believe, a letter that he's written to his son, talking about what it is to be a black person in the world today, or in America today. So it says, the story of race in America is a brutally simple one, written on flesh. It is the story of the black body exploited through slavery and segregation, and today still disproportionately threatened, locked up and killed in the streets. What is it like to inhabit a black body and find a way to live within it? And how can America reckon with its fraught racial history? So I mean, I think that's going to, again, be really, really important. It's quite short, so I don't think it's going to take me too long to get through. So again, this is like a really tall book, but you know, totally different to those two. I picked up The Heir by Kira Cass, which is the 4th book in the Selection series. You guys know how much I have been loving this series this year. It's just light and fluffy and great for when you've had some really sort of heavy reads recently. So I have heard that the last 2 books, books 4 and 5, are not as good as the original trilogy, but we'll give it a go and see. This next one I kind of bought by mistake. It's The Storm Sister by Lucinda Riley. This is actually the 2nd book in the, is it called the Seven Sisters series? Yeah, the Seven Sisters series. So I actually meant to pick up book 1, but for some reason I had the 2nd book on my wish list and I bought that instead of the 1st. I've only ever heard one person talk about this on BookTube, and that is Jess, and I can't remember the name of her channel, so I'll put it down here for you. But she read the 1st one very recently actually, and said that by the end of the book, and I mean these are all very chunky books, but by the end of the book she was really invested in what was going on, and you know, really wanted to pick up the 2nd one. So I mean, I've got the 2nd one, now I just need to buy the 1st one. This is a really good example of a book that I just couldn't find anywhere. I looked for it on my bookshop tour of London that I did. I'll put a link to that if you haven't seen that, and I have just looked for it in loads of different bookshops and I could not find it anywhere, so I had to order it off the internet in the end. And this is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon Maguire. This is the start of a fantasy series. And it is about children that come back from fantasy worlds and have trouble adjusting to the real world, so like back from Narnia and places like that. And I think there's a bit of a sort of a mystery going on in here as well. It is so short, My husband picked this up, I think last week, and he wasn't as impressed with it as he thought he was going to be, but I've heard so many people give this high praise on BookTube, and it's not going to be a massive investment to read, so maybe I'll like it. This next one is has been a recommendation from April over at Getting Hooger With It. This has been one of her favourite books of this year, and it is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. Again, this is one that I haven't been able to find in bookshops, but I've been really interested about. I believe this is about a man and his dog, has what he calls an octopus on her head, and I believe that's a brain tumour. And I think this is the story of, you know, discovering this brain tumour and life with his dog and things like that. April said it's a real tearjerker, so when you need a good cry, this will be a good one to pick up. I did consider picking this up recently, but then the Man Booker shortlist arrived and I had to put it down again, but I am really looking forward to giving that one a go. I also bought the second book in the Anna and the French Kiss series. This is Lola and the Boy Next Door by Stephanie Perkins. I read the first book, I mentioned it actually in my series I hadn't finished, I think the beginning of January last year. I got it for Christmas that year. So I haven't had the opportunity to pick up the second and third book since, so I bought the second book. Again, this is going to be a really easy YA contemporary. So when I'm in the mood for something a bit lighter, this will be what I pick up. The last non-fiction book that I picked up with my holiday money was Just Mercy, and this is by Brian Stevenson. And this says on the back, the US has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. 1 in every 15 people born there today is expected to go to prison. For black men, this figure rises to 1 in 3, and death row is disproportionately black too. Brian Stevenson grew up poor in the racially segregated South. His innate sense of justice made him a brilliant young lawyer, and one of his first defendants was Walter Macmillan, a black man sentenced to die for the murder of a white woman, a crime he insisted he didn't commit. The case drew Brian into a tangle of conspiracy, political machination, startling racial inequality and legal brinksmanship, and transformed his understanding of mercy and justice forever. At once an unforgettable account of an idealistic lawyer's coming of age and a moving portrait of the lives of those he has defended, Just Mercy is an inspiring argument for compassion in the pursuit of justice. So a lot of the non-fiction books that I picked up have got very similar themes to them, and this one, yeah, just when I put it on my wish list I was so excited about it. So yeah. I can't believe also that this has been blurbed by Desmond Tutu. I've got 6 more books here. These ones I actually picked up second hand from Amazon, so I sort of like to go through and have a look at whether I can get them for a penny with a decent sort of condition to them. So this first one is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. I think that's how you pronounce that. This is of course the book that inspired the film, which came out quite a few years ago now. I've heard the book is amazing and that the film is really good too, so I've been wanting to pick this up for ages. I bought a copy of Where'd You Go Bernadette, and this is by Maria Semple, with the sole intention really of reading it because part of it is set in Antarctica and it's the only continent that I haven't read on this year, and it was one of my goals to read on every continent. So I have to read this before the end of the year to meet that goal. We'll see. I was quite disappointed when this next one came. It came in really rubbish condition. If I buy second-hand books from Amazon, I tend to go for like new or very good if they're a penny or, you know, a little bit more than that. And this one must have been described as one of those two things, and it came, and it's quite a battered copy. And it's very yellow, it's got stains on the front and the back, and it's got, I mean, the thing's being lifted up and there's like a little ball in there as well. So I managed to get a refund on this in the end, and I didn't have to send the book back. So I'm going to read it, and if I like it I might pick up a better copy of it. But this is the start of a trilogy. So I don't even know if I've mentioned the name of the book. It's called Sea of Poppies by Amitav Ghosh. And this is the start of a trilogy set against the backdrop of the Opium Wars, and it's set in, let's say on here, no, I want to say it's set in India, but then I don't want to get that wrong. But I've seen this trilogy around. I don't think I've seen anybody talk about this on BookTube, so I'd be interested if you've read this. You know, what did you think of it? Because I haven't really heard anybody else talk about it. Next up, I've got here Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg, and I've heard quite a few people talk about this on BookTube. This says on the back, as 80-year-old Mrs. Cleo Threadgood tells Evelyn Couch about her life, she escapes the Rose Terrace nursing home and returns in her mind to Whistle Stop, Alabama in the 30s, where the Whistle Stop Cafe provides good barbecue, good coffee, love and even an occasional murder. So I think this is going to be sort of a mystery novel. I love the fact that it's set in Alabama and in the 30s. You know, I think that's going to be a really interesting backdrop. We'll see how that one goes. Last two. Well done for sticking with me, guys. I have here A Fine Balance, and this is by Rohinton Mystery. I probably pronounced that wrong, so I apologise. I couldn't get over how big this was when it came. I wasn't really expecting that. This has been on my wish list for quite a while now. This says it's set in the mid-1970s in India. A Fine Balance tells the story of 4 unlikely people whose lives come together during a time of political turmoil soon after the government declares a state of internal emergency. Through days of bleakness and hope, their circumstances and their fates become inextricably linked in ways no one could have foreseen. So, yeah, I quite like stories where you get multi-perspectives that weave together. But yeah, I just can't get over how big that is. And the last one. This has been on my wish list forever. When I'm thinking about buying things, I always tend to go to the last page of my wish list. I mean, there's about 600 items on there at the moment. And I put this on my wish list so long ago now. And that is The End of Your Life book club. And this is by Will Schwab. I think that's how you pronounce that. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about this on BookTube. But when I first heard about it, I just thought the premise sounded really, really good. So this is about a man and his mother. And his mother, I believe, is dying of cancer. And they create this book club together while she's ill. And they read books and discuss books and talk about them against the backdrop of her illness. So I think this is going to be really sad. But also, I think I'm going to find in here some real inspiration when it comes to books and reading. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to picking that one up. But guys, can you believe that was part 1? I should have told you to go and get a cup of tea at the beginning because, you know, I've got like 30 minutes on my camera. So I'm going to have to do some serious editing. So yeah, make sure that you look out for part 2 of my September book haul, which, like I said, should be up on Friday. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the books that I've mentioned today. Have you read them? What did you think? I love chatting to you guys in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.